Hello, guys. Good evening and welcome to today's session. Apologies about the delay. We're live now. Sorry, we had some technical issues we had to sort out before coming live. So we're here. We already have Will on the call. So without wasting much time, Will, over to you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's class. So, what are we going to be doing today, right? So, we are going to continue from where we stopped last class. We're going to continue from text there. So, yesterday we were looking at the JavaScript DOM, if I'm not mistaken. So, just give me a sec to have um, our setup for the class ready, and we will see. Okay, almost there. All right. Ah, cool. Ah,
Will, are you still on the call?
yeah. I am. I'm just setting things up on my end quickly.
All right.
Okay, so please give me a sec. Things coming up pretty slower than expected. Um, okay, this one is ready. This one is ready. All right. So control and paste. Let's refresh and see. Okay, great. So, wait, this doesn't. What has happened? All right, so today we are going to continue from where we stopped before. Um, I'm going to paste our code for yesterday, and I'm going to zoom in so you guys could see. All right, so we have this. All right, so yesterday we looked at how we could use. We looked at few DOM manipulation methods, right? So um, I want to do something quickly. I'm going to copy all my JavaScript. I'm going to put it in a separate JavaScript file. And I'm going to remove the scripts. All right. Now I can refresh this page. Um, changes isn't being reflected. Okay, I think you can see our changes now. All right. So now let's go back. So yesterday we looked at three things. We looked at how we could interact with HTML elements from our JavaScript, and we saw this. We built this layer system at which we had like a list of products, and we had like a list of products, and we started displaying this list of products dynamically, right? We didn't have to code. We did not have to code this HTML one after the other. We just wrote a simple JavaScript code, as you can see, just how many lines? Just a few lines of JavaScript here, and voila, we were able to dynamically render stuff. So I just want you guys to understand that uh, just as a bit of review, we had the following ways to access elements, right? So we had document gets. Here we have document.get element by class name, right? And we could put in the class we want here. We could use, so this is for L for class, right? We also have for tag, and here we do by tag, right? And the tag name, you could put whatever tag name you want here. Either it could be a nav, a paragraph, a h1, right? Yeah, so whatever tag we put here, we get specific elements, right? Now, and finally, we looked at getting element by ID. So EL for ID, and this one here is getting a specific element by ID. This returns an array, right? So I want to explain a nice concept. So this returns an array, right? An array of content, right? So if we want to design, um, if we want to design this stuff, obviously, if you have like an element, and you whenever you get elements by class name, tag name, or tag name, they return an array of HTML elements, right? And you guys know what array are. They are the way to store list of group of data, right? So it means when you loop over this array, what happens is that you're going to at each of when you loop over the array, in each loop you have access to what the to a single element, and that element is exactly the same as when you do document get element by e. What do I mean by that? So let's say here I have a bunch of spans. Let's create span, right? Um, close the span. So let's create a bunch of spans, right? So now, right, and I'm going to give one of this span an ID. So let's say I give this one an ID, and I say this ID is first span, right? And that's the only one we're going to give an ID. So in our JavaScript, so what's going to happen is I'm just going to comment this code so I could explain what we're doing here quickly. So now if I do get element by tag name, right, and I put in the span here as the tag, right? So now I can loop over each of these tags, right? So I could call my for loop. So for const um, span of our list of span, and if I console dot log this particular span, so I'm going to log this span here. So I'm going to say each right. So I'm going to log this span, right? And I'm also going to log this one as well. So I'm going to say console dot log, right? And okay, yeah, it's fine. I can do this. So with this, let's move over to our console. So if I scroll down and I say console, right? And I come here and I refresh this little browser page to get the latest updates we've made. Let's see. Okay, it's not showing. It's fine if it's not showing. I'm just going to zoom out quickly so I could just save this, right? And refresh this. Set get element by class name. Did I spell it wrongly? Get element by class name. Oh, okay, so we don't have values for this, so I'm just going to comment on them, save and run. So I think my spelling, I had some spelling errors there. Get element by tag name. Oh, so the tag and the name, yeah, same thing. So I'm going to save again, refresh. Okay, so now watch guys. So let's zoom in back and let's come here. So you can see we have a collection of this is for all the tags, right? So you can see all the various span elements we have here, right? We have first span. In this first span, you can see it has an attribute of ID, right? And this ID is basically, if you go back to our HTML, right? So if you go to our HTML and we look at things in the HTML, you can see this is the ID it's referring to, right? So let's go back to our code here. So now you can
Hello.
see it's getting the ID, right? Um, if we have a class, it's going to list the class as part of the attribute as well. So this is our second element, our third, and our fourth element, right? Now, for each of these elements, you could see it's displaying an HTML span element as the what? As a single element, right? So this HTML span element, as you can see, is the same thing with the first one. Everything we are seeing here is exactly the same as everything we see. Let me close out this one so it doesn't distract us. You can see it's exactly the same with everything we are seeing here. So you could see HTML span element, attribute object, ID first name, photo type object, right? The same thing, HTML or span element, um, attribute object, ID first name, photo type object. We have the inner HTML, the node type, and the tag name, right? So you could see this is what I mean by if and note, right? If, for example, right, I come here in my JavaScript code here. So in this JavaScript, let's say I make a change, and now I say, let's say I want to get a specific element by ID, right? And that element I want to get by ID is this first span here, right? So I'm going to comment on this code here, and I'm going to come here. I'm going to duplicate this one. And here, I'm going to call this the first span, right? Okay, let's use space, right? And we are going to call this function get element by ID and first span, right? So now if we should save and then refresh our code here. So okay, so for those who are wanting, right? So this is the code I just wrote, right? This is the code I just wrote. So this one, right? This is the code I just wrote. Yeah. So if we go to um, if we go to our browser here and let's look at things, right? So this is our list of elements. So let's look at the first one. You see? Now watch. It's exactly the same as this one. You can see they are exactly the same. There's practically no difference between this one here. So starting from this attribute object and what you are seeing here, you can see they are exactly the same, right? So whenever you are trying to access elements in the DOM that are the same, that displays an array, right? Then understand the fact that each element of that array is gonna be what a representation of the single element, and that is the same thing as saying getting element of ID. That was kind of like the point I'm trying to prove, right? So we also have one more method. So what's going to happen? I'll go to our HTML and I'm going to make a little bit of change there. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to write a div, right? So a div, and in this div, I'm going to close it. And here in this div, I'm going to move all this span stuff we have here inside the div, right? And I'm going to give this div a class, and I'm going to say um, wrap. Yeah, this is a class, and in our JavaScript, I'm going to show you guys a new selector, right? So we looked at element for class name, we've looked at tag name, we've looked at ID. There's one other element that we are going to look at now, and that is getting elements by query selector. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to say, so let me increase my code so you guys see what I'm writing. So I'll say const uh, el for query selector, select selector, yeah, that's correct. And now if I type document dot query selector. So now query selector has two. We have query selector and we have query selector all. So I'm going to give you the example for both of them. So this is going to be query selector all. So yeah, I'm going to say query selector all. And we're going to look at the difference pretty soon, right? So let's go back to our HTML. So I'm going to zoom out. Um, and I'm going to go to the HTML, and I'm going to duplicate this, right? And now I'm going to save. And now in my query selector, I'm going to add this to the query selector. So let me zoom in and show you what I'm going to add. So I'm going to say div and span, right? And I'm going to do it for this one as well. I'll say div and span, right? Now let's see what the result of this is. So console.log so for query selector, right? And we are going to paste this, and for this we put all, right? So let's see what this is going to result to, right? So I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to refresh our browser, and I'm going to zoom in. So let's give it a sec. Yeah, so now we've refreshed it, right? So now look at what happens here, right? When we said query selector, right, you could see it brought the first instance rather that it met our condition. So when you guys learned CSS, right, you guys learned how you could do like nested selection, right? So if, for example, if you want to style all the span elements here, right? If you want to style all this stuff here, you could simply just do this with your CSS. You could just simply say, um, you could just simply do something like this that says div and span, and you put your styles in here, isn't it? Right? So you put your style here, right? So now this span, this is what we call, this in CSS is called CSS specificity, right? So it's basically determine the how specific you want to be, right? And we did something similar earlier when we were styling our buttons and all that stuff. So we had like this product, right? This product stuff, and we specified the images inside the product. So basically, the product is going to be like it's going to be the parent of the image, right? The same thing applies to our H2. We said the H2 in the product, so meaning the product is the parent. The same thing applies to the paragraph and the button. So in JavaScript, being able to select like this is possible using query selector all. I'm using query selector, right? So when you use just query selector, you could do that kind of CSS specificity in your JavaScript, right? So that CSS specificity is what we are doing here in our JavaScript. So we are saying div and span. If you want to do that the same thing with our product, right? You could do something that if you want to do the same thing with our product, so you could just duplicate this and say this is number 2, and here I could say product. So I could put a class, right? So dot product, and I could say dot product p, right? So it's going to return the first note. Query selector, just like get document by ID, whenever you use the query selector document by ID, it's going to get the first instance, the first thing it saw in your current HTML page that matches that condition. So it's going to return just as what, that's why you can see that this one returns just one element, and this is going to return just one element as well. So if I save, I zoom out and come to our code here and zoom in here. Oh, sorry, I forgot to log this in the console. So I'm just going to duplicate this and say 2 and 2, save, and so I have to scroll upward to be able to uh, how do I fix this? So okay, so let me try and zoom out here. Um, Sorry guys, I'm finding it really difficult to zoom out. Um, uh, there's the zoom controls. Um, so let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna do this to be small and smaller as I can. And let's see if I can. Oh boy. Okay, so we're kind of like in a bad situation right now. I can't get out of this screen. I can't get out of this screen. Uh, oh boy. Oh boy. Um, okay, so let me just use my cursor. Oh boy. Um, uh, Please give me a sec. Let me try and see if I can undo what is happening here. Um, Guys, I'm still here. I'm struggling with the predicament I find myself. Escape. Does escape to the trick? No. Uh, this is messed up. Just wait. Uh, okay. Okay. Okay, guys. So I have to like a refresh of the page to fix it. This is one of the reasons why zooming is kind of like difficult. Problems like this. Okay, so let's get back. And I'll be careful when I zoom around this time, so you guys don't have to worry about it. All right. Um, so in our HTML, um, right. So in our HTML, we don't have the product class and all that stuff. It was basically the reason why we don't have that is because I removed it, right? But I'm gonna do, yeah, that's why it's showing null. So whenever you don't have a specific element, it's gonna show as null. But the point still remains that when you use query selector, it gives you the elements. It helps you select elements based on um, how you would use CSS specificity, right? And finally, when you say query selector all, what happens is that you'll be able to get the list of all the elements that matches that specific rule. So now let's go back to our HTML template, right? So now look at all the elements that pass that that pass our specific rules. They are all the span elements, isn't it? All the span stuff. They pass our rules. So how many spans do we have? We have 8 spans, right? So we have 4 here and 4 here as well. So I'm going to call this one wrap span just to show the difference, right? So yeah, so we have, as you can see, we have 8 of them, and that is why you can see here, if you count from 0 to 7, it's practically 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And if you go to the third one, you would see, sorry, to the fourth one, you will see that in the attribute ID, you have the wrap span, meaning it's getting things correctly. Just as the way the first one is going to have the span ID. So this is a way you could target elements in the DOM. So that's something I want you guys to take home from today's class as well. So we looked at the we've looked at query selector all, right? So I'm going to add this to query selector and query selector all. I'm going to add them to the list of things that we've looked at today. All right, so I'm going to put it here and I'm going to comment on them. All right. And whenever you use this query selectors, this document methods, and the documents are not available, it returns null, right? All right, now, and for those of you who are wondering what's the difference between null and undefined, null doesn't save anything in the memory, where undefined save something in the memory. That's different in JavaScript. All right, so now let's get back to how we could modify stuff, right? So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to uncomment this code we have here, and it's going to give us this pretty website we have here. So it's going to give us this pretty website, right? So now I want to make specific change, right? So I want to have a different class that adds an hover effect to this button, right? So watch. So let's go to our CSS. So let's go to our CSS, right? And I'm going to, so I just want to try something quickly. So I'm going to say query selector all. I'm going to use query selector all here. So after we've dynamically added stuff to our menu, I want to see if query selector all is going to get our stuff. So I'm going to say dot product. Uh, yeah, so dot product. Let's put it in the console. So console dot log el query selector all, and let's see. Okay, so you can see it gets it since our console have dynamically added those products HTML stuff in it, right? Since it has done that, you could see it has added stuff, and you could see the class product is present. So this is very good. So I want to show you guys it. I'm going to show you guys something. So let's go to our CSS and let's do something really nice here. So we are going. I'm going to zoom in, right? So whenever I'm zooming in, I'm going to make sure that there's like this tab here because that's how we're able to zoom out, right? So let's zoom in and let's do let's create a style, right? I'm going to call this style. I'm just going to call this um, trans. I'm going to call it TTR. It doesn't really matter. I'm bad with names. So I'm going to call it TTR. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, I'm going to write the following code. I'll say transition. Transition. I'm going to say all 0. Sorry, 0.5 seconds, and I'm going to say linear, right? And linear, and I'm going to create a hover version of this. So I'm going to say ttr hover, right? So the hover class. And in this hover, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background color. So I'm going to say background, BACK, background color. And I'm going to change it to black, right? And I'm going to change the color to white. So I'm going to say color, and I'm going to change it to white, right? By default, I'm going to make this background color here white. So the inverse, basically. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to make this white. I'm going to make this black. Okay. So now let's put this into action, right? So I'm going to save and let's go back, right? And go back to our JavaScript, and I'm going to zoom in again, right? So remember, um, this is an array, right? Um, remember, this query selector all returns an array. So we can use a loop for it. So I'm going to say for, right? Const, because I don't want to change the value of the loop. So I'm going to say product, or P to represent product of um, this list of product here. So, and now I want to add this class ttr to every, to I want to add ttr to the to this button class, right? This button class. So I'm going to say product, and I'm going to select button specifically. So the class product and button. So now we are looping over through the button. So I'm going to say product button, right? So to be more specific. So now we have, in this case, we are going to have access to the product button. So this is one good thing you could do with DOM manipulation, right? So I could say product button, right? Dot. There's this thing we call class list, right? So class list. So if we so class ass list, right? Dot add is like a method. So the reason why this isn't showing properly is because this query selector or function method doesn't have access to it, but it's basically just like this particular one represents this element. So if I'm to do el, our IntelliSense will work better. So if I say el dot class list, so let's go up again and zoom in a bit. So el dot class list, right? So you could see it. Dot add, so you could see. So now we could add specific classes. So the reason why it didn't work for this is because the reason why this IntelliSense didn't show up is because um, our product button here, the query selector, don't have access to the IntelliSense provided by the document.getElementById class. That's why. But whenever you call a method, it's going to recognize it. And that is why when you saw when we did the add, it recognized it, right? So now we could add the class .ttr, and look at what's going to happen, right? So let's go back to our browser. So watch. So this is our browser, our beautiful website. Okay, so if we go back now, right, and watch, by default we don't have the TTR class in this, but with this code, um, with this code running, we are supposed to it's supposed to add the TTR class. So if I inspect element here, right, so this is going to be a tricky one. So if I inspect element here, right? Sorry, I can't zoom the inspect element, but it's gonna show, don't worry. So if I click, if we look at each of the button classes that are being shown here, right? You can see now there's now a class called TT what R. So we are not supposed to put the dots. So that's like a mistake on my part. I'm going to fix that quickly. Okay, so this is how I'm going to fix it. I'm going to get out of this mode. Yeah. Okay. So you could see now, so if you look, our element now has this TTR in it, right? And this is because this is what JavaScript has done. It has added this specific class to our HTML, right? So if I go out of the inspect element now, so if I should close our inspect element, and now if I should zoom into this product class, what's going to happen? See, you see the design we added is now working, right? Even if it was not part of the original design, we dynamically created this class and added this code, and you can see it's working. Doesn't it look nice, right? So this is adding stuff with classes, right? So let's say we want to be a little bit uh, uh, let's say we want to be a little bit creative, right? I want to change the CSS, right? Well, that is also possible with JavaScript, right? So the way we have this get element dot the way we have this class lists and stuff. There's also someone called get element dot style, right? So style, right? So if you see this style, you can now do dot. So all the CSS style you can take off in this life is currently here. So I can now say something like border, right? So border, and I can put whatever code I want to happen in my border here. So what's going to happen is that, and I just wanted to know classes that have hyphen, right? I used instead of hyphen, it's replaced with like with a capital letter of the next word. So something like border color is going to be, instead of border hyphen color, it's going to be border capital letter color, as you can see, right? So now I can come here and I can do that same thing here. So let's comment on this and let's duplicate this because this is the one we want to work on, right? So we are going to change this and I'm going to say the border color, I want to give it red, right? So now what was going to happen? So if we zoom out, right, and go to our browser, you can see, right, our border color has changed to what? To red. And you can see both our classes were applying. So we can now, so you can see now as long as we have access to a specific element, we can now change the CSS, you could change the HTML, and you can even do animations with it, right? So you could access the animation properties and animate it, right? But animation is a little bit complex compared to trying to change the style or the trying to change the style and all that stuff. So this animation is like a method that takes in kind of like keyframes or a list of keyframes and some other options, right? It's more robust to talk about it. And we are actually running out of time already. So for those who want reference, we want to have reference to how to use animation. I think I could just to quench some of our curiosity, I can just quickly pick up an example for JavaScript animations with the DOM and share with you guys. So let's see. I'm going through. Okay. Oh, there's something also important I want to point out. Outside animations, um, there's also things we can do, such as there's also things we can do, such as events, right? So this is actually way important than animations, funny enough. So we could add an event to these options right here. So now if you look, if you click on this button, nothing happens, right? So what if we want to listen at when somebody clicks on this button? Right? We want to listen for that, right? We can do that, and it's pretty easy. So in this product stuff, so if I go back again to this code we have here, right? So if I said el dot add event listener, right? You could see we cannot have, so this add event listener help us to listen to specific events that JavaScript has that our browsers or JavaScript has provided us with. There's a lot, there's a list of it, of all these events. You could Google it to look at, you could Google to look at them more properly. But one of the events we can listen to is click, CLICK. So we could listen to click event. So let's have this happen to our button here, right? So let's say I add a click event. So this click event, so this add event listener takes your event as a string and also a function, right? So you guys know how to write functions in JavaScript, right? So it takes a function as the next argument, right? And this function, there's something called an e, or an event that is being passed in this function. So if you come here, we can say console, console.log, and we could log the word click, and I could log the event alongside the click, right? So now watch what's going to happen, right? So I'm going to open our console. So let's go to open our console here, right? So we have our console, right? So now watch what's going to happen. So let's zoom in a bit, right? You guys like it zoom. So now watch what's going to happen. I'm going to click this cat button, right? So look, whoo, I clicked it. And what happened? It showed that I clicked on the console, right? And now it has this property called is trusted, right? So when you click, depending on the type of element, this event displays different things, right? This E here display different things. So the question is, what can we do with this, right? When somebody clicks on add to cart, we could write a function that takes in this product that they have clicked and add it to the cart. What do we mean by that, right? So I'm going to create a quickly here. I'm going to create a, a, an array. So I'm going to say an array const, and I'm just going to call this array cart, right? And it's going to be an empty array, right? So now on this click function, I'm going to write the function to add the items, this to the cart, right? So let's do this, right? Um, so let's do this. Let's write the function. So to add this item to the cart, all I have to do is just say, there's a lot of logic that goes into it, but I'm going to use a very simple logic, which is just cat dot what cat dot push, right? Sorry guys, I almost forgot how to add some what's it called, uh, an item to an array just now, because I code in several languages, and one of the languages I've been using recently is Go. And when we want to add stuff to a slice or an array in Go, we use the word append. So I almost said append just now, so don't worry about that. It's just a mistake, right? So now I'm going to add the product, right? This the current product we are in as part as to the cart. But right now, as you can see, we are actually looping over the query selector stuff, right? We are not looping over the product, right? But what we can do, I can change this for loop to the standard for loop, right? So the standard for loop would say this is going to be let I, which represents index, to be equals to 0, and we could say as long as the index is okay, sorry, I, so as long as the index is less than the element, as long as it's less than the element dot length, right? Then we'll increment the index by 1 by saying I plus plus, right? So this is just simple array stuff. So now I could now say this product button, if I want to get this stuff product button, I could just create it as a specific element. I could just say const product button is now equals to the query selector all current index, which is I. So with this, I can now do that same thing for the product. So I can now say products, right? Because this query selector is looping through all the instance of our product. So whatever amount of query selector we have is going to be the same value with our product. So I just say products dot what? The specific index of the product, I. And now if I come here um, outside our, if I come outside our application here and say console, outside the loop, and I say console.log cat, right? Let's see what's going to happen. So let's save and watch. So you can see initially our cat is empty, isn't it? But let's add a product to the cart. Okay, so now this our product has been added to the cart, but we can't see it. And the reason for that is because this function has already run and it's not going to run again. So for us to see it, we have to put it inside here. So let's go back, and now if I click on it, watch, we've added an item to the cart. And you can, just to make sure we are adding the right item, if we go to look at this object, you can see it has the name of the device to be what do we have as the name of the device? It's supposed to be iPhone 9. Uh, I think this, oh, iPhone 9. Which one? Which device is called? How do I get the name? Oh, it's actually the product, right? It's just where do we see okay, yeah, the title. You guys should have helped me out there. I was confused, right? So you can see the exact product we are adding to cart is what we see here. So let's add this iPhone X here. Look, we have 2 items in the array. So let's look at the second one, and you can see, wow, it's what? The iPhone X, right? So you can see we've now added the functionality of adding products to cart in our application. So let's say we have a UI that displays the list of items in the cart, for example. Um, so let's say we have that. So let's do that design quickly. So um, I'm just going to do this quickly above here. So I'm going to remove all these things. We don't need them anymore. And I'm going to say, so this is going to be a paragraph, right? And this paragraph, I'm going to give it an ID, and the ID is going to be called cat. And I'm going to say you have, I'm going to say span, and this span, I'm going to give it an ID of, okay, I'm going to give it items count. Right? So you have so by default it's going to be 0. So it doesn't say you have 0 product. So let's do a little bit of design on this, right? So I'm just going to say I'm going to target the ID cat, and I'm going to say it should have a font font size of let's say 2.5 rem. It's going to be really big. And let's style the span as well. So I'm going to say dot cat, and I'm going to say dot items count, pound items count, right? So I'm specifying the items count in this one. So I'm going to put the padding. So I'm going to say I'm going to give it I'm going to make it display displ I'm going to say display inline block, right? And I'm going to give it a width and a height. I'll say the width should be, let's say, uh, 1.5 rem. And so inline block, I'm supposed to terminate here. The same thing for the width and the height as well, right? And I'm going to give it a background color. A background color of yellow, right? Um, a background color of yellow, and I'm going to say, I'm going to give it a padding of uh, point, 0.5 rem. So let's terminate this as well. My stars isn't applied. Did I miss something? Items count. Is this spelling wrong? No. ID cards. This should work, but it's not working. Should I make it block and see if it will work? Yeah, so it's the CSS is actually being applied. Um, oh, I'm not supposed to put this in string. Sorry, it's my bad. Okay, so you can see, let's make it red so it pops up. Okay, so the width and the height is less than the font size, so that's a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase it a little bit to 2.5. 2.5. Yeah, so or let's just make it 3.5. It's going to have like a bigger height. And now we have the padding to be this. So, and I'm also going to do something. So for it to be square, like to have the square, to have like a rounded shape, we are going to do this. So I'm going to say border, BODER, radius, and BOR, border. I think this border spelling I'm pushing. Oh no, it's correct. 100%. Okay, yeah, I forgot to terminate there. Yeah, that's the problem. So now we can see now we now have this like rounded stuff. Our text isn't really um center aligned, right? So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to say text txt dash align. I'm going to say center. All right, so I forgot to terminate the year as well. In VS Code, the termination happens for us, so we don't have to worry about it, but it's different here. So with that, we have our something looking like this. So I'm going to put a margin at the bottom. So I'm going to say margin dash bottom. And I'm going to say the margin button is, let's say, 2 rem, right? So we have a little bit of space, right? So now, all this CSS we're writing is specifically so that our JavaScript is going to look nice, right? So now I'm going to do this. So I'm going to say that um, the length of the cart should be our item count. So what I'll just have to do here is um, I'll say document dot get element by ID, right? And what element am I getting by ID? It's going to be our items count, right? And this element dot inner HTML, so you could just write everything in one line if you want to. It's going to equals our cat. So I'm going to put it in a string concatenation. So it's going to equals our cat dot length. So now watch what's going to happen to our website now. So watch everyone. So whenever I add an item to the cart, so let's add this item to the cart. Sorry. Okay, so let's do that again one more time. All right, so when I add item to the cart, look what happens. So our element doesn't change. Did I get things wrongly? Let's confirm. ID items count. Items count. This should work. What is happening here? Okay, so this code has already run. So it's not going to run. So we have to move it upward to where we did our cat function as well. So we come here and we're going to move it here. That should fix it. So let's do that again. So let's test. So if we come here, watch. Let's reduce this a bit so we could see everything happening all the time. So watch, add to cart. You see? Add to cart 2, add to cart 3. Are you guys seeing it? So this is something our JavaScript could just do, making our site dynamic. By default, sites are static, but with the help of JavaScript, we can make it what? Dynamic, right? So this is going to be the end of our class today. Crap. Shit. I hope my files are saved. Oh no. The files are not saved. Hopefully, with the recording of the class, you guys could see the original files I wrote, the original code I wrote, and make those adjustments yourself. I'm sorry about that. This is one of the reasons why the gets shared somehow. All right, so this is going to be the end of our class for today. If you guys have questions, you could ask. I'm going to entertain just very few questions because I need to go get something and it's taking way longer. Time is running pretty late, so I have to take just a few questions. So, is there any question at all?
Yeah, Will, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yes, I think just one, so I'll just display it on the screen. Can you see it?
Okay, so class list. What class list does, basically list the list of classes. That's the list of classes a specific HTML element has. And when you use class list dot add, it means you could add to that list of class. You could also remove, right? So you could also remove. If you try to practice this stuff at home, you'll be able to see that you'll be able to remove from the list of classes as well. So just quickly, if I should show you, there are several methods. So if I say document, dot get element by ID, and I just put in a dot class list, right? So if you click on this dot, you would see there's a lot of things you could try. If you click on this arrow here, if you're using VS Code to code at home, it explains what this thing does, right? So it says it adds all arguments passed except already existing or present. So basically, it adds whatever class you put in here, um, uh, apart from the existing one. So when you call this dot add methods, you could add class one after the other like this. So you could say class this, you could do comma, another class this, right? That's what add class does, right? There's also contains. What contains does, it returns a boolean value of true or false if whatever class you pass in here can be found, right? Unlike add, you can only put in one argument in contain. So you could just say, you could just do only this. Let's say contain trr, which is like our example. So it will check. So if it contains it, it will return true. If it does not contain, it will return false, right? There are other methods like remove, right? So remove can remove a specific class. So you could just say trr is going to remove that class. There's also replace, right? Replace replaces trr with whatever class you put. Takes in two stuff. So the first one you want to remove, and the second one. So trr2, for example, you use that to replace it. So that's the um, so that's the stuff. I hope that answers the question. Is there any question? Um, so I'm sorry, I accidentally lost the code base for. You saw how the code base just now was just messed up just now, and I wasn't able to have it. But what I can do is I can rewrite the code and send it to you guys. Uh, I'll send it to you guys later on, right? It's going to happen just before 10, before 11 o'clock tonight. I'm going to send it back to you guys. So sorry about the whole mixture with the code. Something it's even tiring for me as well. So any other question? Oh, you're welcome. So, in the absence of no other question, we end our class here today. I hope you guys have seen that your journey so far has not been wasted. You've seen how you learned HTML, and now you learned CSS, and you started learning boring JavaScript, but now you can see how useful the JavaScript is uh, to making your static website become more dynamic. So we are going to end here. See you guys in our next class next week. Bye.